Well, what about you guys? How are you all today? I hope you are all keeping well. Hope you've all been keeping safe as this lockdown quarantine has still been going on. Hope you're all keeping healthy. So yeah, my lockdown got a little bit more exciting when I got the X-T2. My lens finally arrived, which was good, so I was able to go out, take some photographs. So I took myself up the Lagan towpath just to take some images, have a little bit of peace. I wanted to record a proper vlog for this, but to be honest, I actually wanted to have a bit of peace with the camera, just have a bit of time, just sort of have a bit of one-to-one, mano-a-mano with me in this new camera. So I apologize if this isn't like the vlog or anything, but I wanted to take today's video to talk about the images that I took during that session and just my overall experience with using the camera while out and about. So we've got the Fujifilm X-T2 here with the 18-55 f2.8 to f4 lens, just that really nice kit lens that generally comes with the camera, and I even loaded it up with my brand new pig iron LB1L bracket, so I was a proper landscape photographer, so it was nice getting a walk up along the Lagan towpath the other day. The weather, yeah, it was pretty dry, it was very overcast, the lighting wasn't exactly the greatest or anything like that, but we find a lot of different subjects to take photos of. We got a mixture of graffiti, of course we got the landscape sort of photography, we also got a little bit of like close-up macro sort of works, and I've got a few images that I want to play through here. I'm going to show you the of course the information, the exposures that were used. I'm going to talk about when I was taking those photographs, show you the edit I've done with them, and of course I'll show you the before and the after. I've got all these things loaded up in Lightroom. I know a Fuji user losing Lightroom, it's blasphemous, I tell you. So what was it like taking this out and about? Well, I have to say it was a real treat. Once I got the camera set up to the sort of way that I wanted to be set up for, so like so back button autofocus, where I want different sort of settings to be as well, it was just really nice going out. Now there was a couple of things I did change while I was out and about. I can't fully remember what all I changed, mind you. I was mostly using single point autofocus. I tend to use zone and wide quite a good fair bit, so this was a bit of a change for me, using single point. And again, I was shooting on RAW, had another card in here just to keep as a backup. It was really nice having two memory cards in a camera again. I missed that far. Don't get me wrong, I've never, in all the years that I've done photography, I have never had an issue with a memory card in a single memory card slot camera, but knock on wood, that isn't going to happen just yet. So when it came down to it, the one thing that I just was so happy about and just was so in love with compared to whenever I was working with the Sony was the Fuji flip out screen. So whenever I was doing a lot of portrait orientations, just the fact that the screen does this just really changed my photography. This just really helped change composition. Plus having the L bracket on now, it was a big help too. This L bracket in particular does get in the way of the switch because this is a more universal L bracket, but it wasn't too bad. Once I was able to do things like this, oh my gosh, that was the biggest help for me whenever I was going out doing my photos. So a lot of portrait orientation sort of style of shots here. I did go a bit crazy, but of course I was still using what I was used to before with the Sony when I was shooting down quite low, so it was really nice having that. Really nice having the joystick as well for my autofocus so that I can move about where I want my focus point to be. Plus the dial on the back here, and once you press that in, the focus goes in to my subject, it magnifies in, and I'm able to get a little bit more, pick out details here and there. So it was really nice having those sorts of, and it was just nice having it just so quickly, just at the quick press of a button. And it was just really nice just having this camera. It's nice and lightweight, it was good in the hand, nice and compact. The usability was just so nice. The viewfinder's nice and clear. I was using that a few times, so I was really happy about it. So it was really good taking this camera out and about. Some little things I've still to work on. Like I find, like, in fact, before I get into all that, let's have a look at the photos here. So I've got Lightroom open up. So in Lightroom, I've just got a few images picked out here for you guys. So let's just go to the library. Some at different styles, some at different effects. We'll show the before, we'll show the after of what they look like. And yeah, let's just have a run through. So first of all, I was under this bridge where there was a lot of really danky graffiti and on. It was just really cool. And as you can see from the edit, that there's just a lot of colors popping out here. So you can see from the exposure, 10th of a second, f11, ISO 200, not a bad enough exposure, 27.7mm, so I was zoomed in just a very tiny bit. It was mostly because I wanted to just, because there was a lot of like grassy bits over to the side, so I wanted to take those out, just make the frame a little bit tighter. In the developing, I have to say that I didn't really do too much, but my editing style was very similar to what I was used to with the Sony, so process was very similar. Little things here and there has probably changed, but not too much. But the one thing that I did love in this whole process is that in the profile section, so you can find out about Adobe profiles in one of my previous videos. I can put the link in the top right hand corner, but this is one of my favorite sort of parts about Adobe Lightroom and maybe even Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Raw, is that you can get all these different profiles, and it does have the camera's profiles here, so you can see you got classic chrome, you got across, all the ones that everybody loves with their Fuji camera. So for this shot I used classic chrome, and it just sort of made things a bit more matte but still keeping those colors popping. But I mean, with before, you can see what a difference we were able to pull out here with Lightroom. Now for this next shot, this was just a little bit further on up the Lagan towpath, so this was just a field, and while going past it I just really loved not only just the tones that are going on, but the likes of the sky. So this was just a field. Obviously the farmer has laid out some things here and there just to protect his plants, but there's a lot of really nice composition work going on. There's lots of different sort of leading lines, and I just really wanted to spend a bit of time playing about with that. So if the farmer of this field is just watching this video, thank you for this photograph. It looks really cool. Anyway, but back to the photo. So shutter speed of 400th of a second was used here with an aperture of f8 and still ISO 200. I shot this wide open, 18mm. I actually shot this handheld without a tripod just to see how everything was, and I mean, if we zoom in, just look at all those details there. It's just so sharp. And what I really did with this photograph was, as you can see with it being black and white, I actually used, rather than Adobe Monochrome, I used the Acros filter, and of course Acros is like the Fuji god for black and white photography. Every Fuji user does seem to love Acros, and I do like it as well. It's a lovely black and white, so we're keeping that here, and just see what such lovely tones. I had thought of this over this photo quite a good fair bit because the color is also quite nice, but I think for me, with the way the tones and all are working, the black and white just looked so much better. I mean, even if we go to before editing, like, it's still a decent enough shot. You can see that sky just looks so lovely, but we were able to pull out so much more there. And funny enough, this is actually probably my favorite photo from the entire walk. This was just a tree that had just fallen down and was just lying in the Lagan, and I was just like, there's some composition work that we can do here. But that's when I actually started editing and working on this photograph, that just so much more was opening up to me. So I mean, you can see I used the Acros filter again, or the Acros profile, but I used it with a red filter. So scrolling on through, you can see it doesn't really change too much compared to normal Acros, but the red filter I just sort of thought deepened everything a little bit more. So as you can see with the tree's leading down into the water, you've got all this greenery here. But whenever I started editing this photograph, I was experimenting with the color, the black and white, and whenever I went to black and white, it just looked so scary. The one thing that was really standing out for me in this photograph was this here, just the end of the bark. It looks like, you know, nothing special, but see, when you zoom out, it looks like a pagan or a druid just lifting their hands in praise or something, like they're lifting their hands over the sacrifice of the tree that has fallen. But see what will it look like beforehand. So exposure wise, a third of a second was used here, with an aperture of f11 and ISO 200, zoomed in all the way at 55mm, but I did crop in just that little bit more just to tighten up into the frame. I would have loved a telephoto that I could have gone into likes of this sort of area, or even have like an ND filter, so I could have made that water a bit more smoother. But while there's so much colors and all going on here, I mean, just look at this same sort of shot with the color on. It still looks really nice, but there's just something about the black and white. And then I did do a bit of cleaning up here and there, so you can see some spot removers. Let's get rid of that visualized spot, just to get rid of some things in the water that I just wasn't happy about. So now I want to try a little bit more up close work here. So I was zoomed in quite a good fair bit into these flowers, and I just wanted to see what the sort of close up blur out effect of what the 18-55 can do. And the 18-55 is by no means a macro lens, but it's not too bad, I have to say. You know, and plus I had the optical stabilization on here, so I was shooting this handheld, and I was shooting this wide open at f4 because I was fully zoomed in. The lowest aperture I can go down to is f4, whereas if I had been zoomed out, I could have gone to 2.8. I would have loved to have shot at 2.8, but what a difference. Like, I mean, the f4 here is still looking really nice. It's still looking really blurry. So there was a few shots that I played about with, but as soon as I seen this sort of composition, so we've got a lot of blur out here from a branch of blossoms in the foreground, and it's just leading on into these little blossoms here. So it's some really nice bokeh going on, quite swirly, but it is so lovely. So I'm just keeping to the Adobe color profile on here. I haven't actually set to any of the Fuji ones. So zooming in, I mean, the detail is not too bad. It's passable. From afar, it's to me, I just love this image. I just love the depth of it, but I also love just the highlights and the blur out here. 800th of a second, so I wanted to be quite fast for handheld photography. I did shoot this at ISO 800. I just again wanted to see what the low light performance is like on this camera. And, you know, I have to say it's not too bad, especially with this lens and an aperture of f4. So coming more or less to the end of our walk along the Lagan, I started off on this side and managed to work my way over to the other side to go back the ways, and I got myself set up along this pier just to see all the reflections and the trees as well. But this was just a really lovely shot. I mean, even beforehand, it's not too bad. Like, you can see all that sort of glare in the sky. It wasn't really the sky could have been a lot better for this day, I have to say, because there was times that my shots were a bit overexposed because of the way the sky was working. But you know, some of them were quite recoverable, like this one in particular. So shutter speed of 40th of a second, f11 ISO 200, shot this wide at 18mm, and I mean, again, details are looking really nice. You can see in the water all the foliage. Now, a lot of people complain about Lightroom and the processing of foliage. Now, there was some times that I was seeing, because of this whole Lightroom and the worming effect that goes on, and they don't process foliage, it does happen. I'll not deny that. I opened some of these images up, like this one, and my next image, I opened them up in Capture One, and yeah, there was a little bit more better on the detail, but it wasn't too much. There was still a little bit of that swirly, watery paint effect going on. So it is, if you can, it is a little bit easy to fix up, but for shots like this here, it's not too noticeable, so it wasn't really that big of a deal for me. So, but I still really like how the details are in this sort of shot. It's nice and sharp, nice and clear. The colors are really popping. I was able to put, I think I put a grad filter onto the sky. Yeah, I did, just to sort of help underexpose that a little bit. Use just the Provius, the standard of profile on this shot. I mean, I can use Velviva, but I just think it just boosts out the colors way too much, so I just kept it nice and standard here. And then finally, pretty much the end of our walk, this was up along the Civic Centre, the Island Arts Centre in Lisburn, and I really loved all this plant work that was going on in the Lagan, and just sort of get a last shot for the day just to see. So you can see here there's just so much colors going on. There's a lot of really nice blues and greens, but I mean, before I edited the shot, it still looked quite nice, but I was able to get these colors popping out a lot more. Plus there's also all these different things that are just obstructive in the image, like rubbish, and it just didn't look nice, whereas I was able to just take all that out, and it just is a total image. Now you can see when I zoom in into the likes of the trees that we do, that what I was talking about before was that whole worming and foliage effect that goes on with Fujifilm RAW files and Lightroom, and you can see it's going on a little bit here, but it's not drastic. It's manageable. It's fine enough for me. It's not my main focus. My main focus is, so I was zoomed in and focused on the appear on the end, but it was able to help bring in the likes of my forest. So the foreground is of course the main area to look at, and just look at all these details. But it's the colors, most importantly, that are really standing out for me in this image. And I did use the Velvia, so the vivid sort of profile for this photograph, just to help it pop a little bit more, because there's just so many different colors. Exposure wise, 120th of a second at f8 and ISO 200, little bit wide open on the focal length at 18.8mm. So this would sort of be like a standard-ish full exposure for handheld photography, because I didn't want to use the tripod here because I was standing on a little like bridge of sorts, and I didn't want to take up too much room here, so this exposure worked pretty nicely for handheld photography. But yeah, it's all these different images, just I've been quite happy enough with them. There's some of them where I've been like, if I go back to the one with the trees and the Lagan, and if I zoom in a little bit more, I sort of thought I could make this a little bit sharper, maybe a little bit more in focus. But for me, I was using it, like I say, I was using single point autofocus, and I never really used that too much myself. I more used like zone and wide, but it still looks really nice here. I just felt, just to me personally, I think it could stand out just that little bit more. I don't know as to whether it was just the way it's looking in Lightroom, or it could be just me with operating the camera or anything like that. But even from afar, I mean, the image looks quite alright. But again, my favorite photograph is just that one of the tree. It just, I would love to see this one printed out. So yeah, for my first photo session with the camera, I'm pretty happy enough with it. I'm happy that I have made the switch. The usability is the biggest thing for me when taking this out about. It was just so good. It was so nice and user friendly compared to whenever I was working with the Sony. Now the Sonys are user friendly, but even in my years of using them, they did get a little cumbersome, whereas this was just a little bit more quicker for me to work around, so it was really nice having that. I am pretty happy with how the images came out in the end. So thanks very much for sticking around and watching this video, guys. If you did like it, do like, share, press subscribe, and also hit that wee bell icon so that you can stay up to date with future videos. But I look forward to seeing what more I get out of this camera, get some more journeys, maybe even do a proper vlog like I promised originally. But you know, we'll see what happens. But until then, guys, please take care and please stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.